car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Welcome to the attorneys, another great episode we have planned for you. So glad to have you along with us. We want to remind you that at the bottom of the screen, you have the numbers to get in contact with the attorneys, but here's the number that you should have always. It's 1-844-LAW-TALK. That's where you can reach an attorney from Hollis, Wright. It is free, it's confidential, and they're standing by live right now. We've got another great discussion. Josh has another great guest. I'm really looking forward to this conversation on volunteer lawyers.
Absolutely. We're lucky tonight. Hope you had a great week, by the way. We're lucky tonight to have Graham Hewitt with Volunteer Lawyers Birmingham, which is a great service and a uniquely different service to the type of work that we do in Alabama, but who his group serves as a 501c3 entity is super, super important for Alabama and for people that need legal help. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
All right, so Graham, tell us just a little bit about Volunteer Lawyers Birmingham and kind of how it got created and in general what it does.
Yeah, so we've been around for about 20 years. What we are is we're a independent nonprofit that provides free legal assistance to low-income residents of Jefferson County. We do that in mainly the civil and domestic areas. We don't do anything criminal. We don't do anything like car wrecks or fee-generating cases that a plaintiff's attorney would do. And so what we do is we everybody that calls in, we put them through intake before we pair them with an attorney. The attorney will talk through their problems, see what issues are going on, and either file something in court, make a phone call on their behalf, do something that needs to be done for that client that wouldn't be able to be done otherwise. And so we help. We're doing 3 days a week with our help desk. We also have some monthly clinics that I can talk some more about as well. And so that's what we do. We do everything from just counsel and advice to representing people in court. So we run the full gamut there.
How do you get lawyers involved in this program? Are they just individuals that are employed by Volunteer Lawyers Birmingham, or do you outsource to other law firms that come in and provide services for you guys?
So we outsource. We're lucky in Birmingham. We have a very supportive legal community. We have great attorneys from firms, big firms, small firms, solo practitioners that participate. We have about 500 participate during the year. So we have a lot of attorneys that do participate. We have some that come down as a group, and some that like to work in their area, some that like to get outside their area, work in divorce or something like that. Yeah. So we get from all over the place.
Art, we hear a lot on this show about the role that we play as plaintiff lawyers, or we bring guests on that may handle wills and probate matters and estate matters and whatnot. What you don't hear a lot of is what Graham is talking about today, which is individuals that need true legal help, whether it's a landlord-tenant circumstance, a foreclosure circumstance, whether it is, child support, and they need someone to listen to their story and help lead, guide, and direct them through the process at no cost to start with, at least, to be able to get legal help. And I just think the service is a really good service.
I agree with you, and viewers at home are thinking probably what I heard, and the word was community. Yeah. Community is so important. Is there a greater need? Are you finding that more people in the community need services like the attorneys?
Yeah, no, and we're doing the community clinics in order to do that. What we're doing is we're trying to build sustainable neighborhoods in Birmingham, and so often we see problems that are the acute, immediate problems, so we operate as an emergency room. What we're trying to do is do a little bit more preventative care. So we're getting out in the community and we're doing things like wills clinics. That way we can protect the family assets, make sure that next generation gets taken care of. The clients we see don't have a lot of money that they're working with anyway, so we want to protect what little they have, including that home, so they don't have to deal with that if a family member does die. We're also doing some things like with some expungements to help create a sustainable workforce in the community. So, get out into a community, we start protecting that next generation with wills and estates. We get an employable workforce, makes it where the community can start to sustain itself, and we can keep people close to the city in good shape.
Community development. That's, at its base, which is great. So, Graham, how did you get involved in this? Not every lawyer that gets out of law school says, I want to go do this type of work and help people like you do, and you serve a super important role in our society and the legal world. How'd you get involved in this in the first place?
Well, it was something I always said I wanted to do, and there aren't a whole lot of positions out there like that, and I kept being told that there wasn't much I could do, and eventually found a position with my organization and just stuck there until the director opened up and took that. But I've worked in different community service and with some different nonprofits over the years, just learning some different skills so that I could take my legal background and do some good with it.
What do you see as far as kind of the most significant or repeat issues at the organization? Is it landlord-tenant? Is it divorce, domestic, and what is it?
Right now, it's landlord-tenant. For a long time, we had the eviction moratorium going on during the pandemic, and so that created a large backlog. And so what we've done is we've actually got a team down at the courthouse for the docket days for landlord-tenant cases. But we worked hand in hand with the groups that did the emergency rental application program and helped keep people in their homes. But right now, our eviction case is about 40% of our cases, which is significantly higher than it used to be. Then we see a lot of just some general finance with garnishments and stuff, and then a lot of divorces too. But eviction is the number one issue right now.
And I think one of the things Art mentioned earlier is, a little bit about funding for you. How can we help? I mean, how do you hold fundraisers throughout the year? I mean, how does the organization get supported, and what are things that we can do to be able to help it?
Well, again, we have a very supportive legal community here. A lot of our funding comes from donations from law firms. We also are supported by some state organizations, the Alabama Law Foundation, the Alabama Civil Justice Foundation. Both of those support us with some grants. We also receive some funding from some local organizations like the Goodrich Foundation to help us with some of our community work. So we have a good mix of both private donations and grant funding that helps us do what we do.
So it sounds to me like your lawyers, if you've got a landlord-tenant related issue, they are meeting with the client and may actually attend, for example, with an unlawful detainer to have someone removed from an apartment that's not paying their rent. They'll actually attend the hearing and argue the issue for them at no cost to the individual. They will.
Now, filing fees might still be the client's responsibility. We'll go over all that when we meet with you. But yeah, meet in court. A lot of times what will happen is that it might not be filed correctly, or the landlord might not state the right reasons, or might not have given the right notice, and everybody deserves a fair shot at court. So just having that representation there is huge. It really helps out, really helps to articulate some of the issues that the people might be having. It might have been that there were unlivable conditions or something in that apartment that made things difficult for them, and so led to them not paying rent. But want to take all that, but represent them in court, keep them in the house.
And Josh, I know you want, as the managing partner for Hollis Wright, you're not going to say this, but I need to say this because I think it's important that you at home, the viewers at home watching this program, know about the heart of the law firm to bring on this type of information, because you're talking about volunteer lawyers who really help out and have a great service for the community. So glad that, Graham, that you guys are doing what you're doing. We've got more to discuss. I want to just put a pin right there, and we'll come back because there's more to talk about. And we also want to hear from you. You can get in contact with the attorneys at 1-844-LAW-TALK, and you can just follow the numbers at the bottom of the screen. There's also a QR code there. You can scan that as well, but make sure you stay right here. We've got much more to talk about attorneys and volunteer attorneys as we continue here on The Attorneys after this short break.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was we would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas. Bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
That we would be able to use the resources of the many lawyers we have at this law firm to create a plan that had a lasting impact that also gave back to the community at the same time. And I think we've done just that with the attorneys.
Welcome back into the attorneys. So glad to have you along with us tonight as we are talking about volunteer lawyers. And something I want to point out as we get back into our discussion. Alabama is one of only states, one of a few states that provides no funding for civil legal help. And as we get back into the discussion with Graham and of course with Josh, just wanted to point that out because I think that's something that viewers at home want to know about and should know about, and why the value of having the volunteer lawyers.
Yeah, no, and that is important. I mean, we're dealing with people that are at risk of becoming homeless and issues like that, domestic violence victims, and there's no money out there for them. That's why the organizations like the Alabama Civil Justice Foundation, Alabama Law Foundation are great for supporting us, as well as all the firms in the Birmingham area, but there is no funding for the civil legal issues right now.
What is, are you tied in with other communities in the state? Like Montgomery, Mobile, Huntsville, are there other organizations similar to yours that do something similar where you can say, for example, hey, look, that really fits because you're in Montgomery, Circuit Court, or you're in the District Court of Montgomery. Thank you for calling us, but we have an entity similar to that down there. I mean, how does that work?
There are similar programs. There's one in Madison County. There's one in Montgomery. There's one in South Alabama that covers kind of the Mobile area. Okay. There's also the State Bar Volunteer Program that covers the rest of the counties in the state. It's going to depend on each program might vary on issues that they see, just depending on what their attorney base is, but the programs exist throughout the state.
What does it take, and this is one thing we hadn't talked about, what does it take in order to qualify to be able to have your case handled through the Volunteer Lawyers Birmingham organization or one of the other organizations you just mentioned in the other communities?
Well, first, qualifying issue, like we talked about, civil or domestic legal issue. The other thing is we do in-county residents. So if you're a resident of Jefferson County or you have an issue that is here, so if you lived outside the county and you had to file here for whatever reason, we can see you. For income, we go with kind of the federal poverty guidelines. We are at the 125% of the poverty level. For a family of four, that's about $30,000. So we're really not looking for much. If you qualify for other government assistance programs, more than likely you qualify for us, but we'll do an intake with you, take a look at pay stub, and get you qualified that way.
You want to talk about giving back to your community. We talk here at the firm about, we think the show is a way to give back to the community. I mean, this is called giving back to your community, and it really is about community organization and helping. One of the things that I think is super interesting about this is that there are lawyers across our city who work for other organizations, law firms, et cetera, that donate time to assist on this stuff. I mean, that is as good of why we went to law school as you can possibly get.
Talking about donating time, it reminds me about United Way campaigns. When, where people are assigned and donate their time to help and assist, it really becomes a labor of love for the attorneys, right?
It does. A lot of attorneys find it real rewarding what they do. Some have had their volunteer clients turn into full-time clients with other issues. Stay in touch. We hear great feedback from the clients themselves, but it's a really good reason, like you're saying, why you went to law school in the first place, to kind of get back in touch with those roots, be that counselor, be that advocate that you went to school for, and maybe get outside those billable hours and give back to the community.
How do you take do you have lawyers that are internal to the organization, or even some of the external folks that come in that don't have, for example, a specialty like landlord-tenant, but get thrust into landlord-tenant and have to kind of bone up and learn about that law in order to assist? I mean, how does that work?
We've got a great staff. We've got 3 full attorneys. We've got 2 staff attorneys and 1 managing attorney, a lot of experience. They kind of are our subject matter experts. So whatever, your particular area is, you do car wrecks, don't know anything about landlord-tenant, we'll get you trained, get you up to speed, go over all the forms for you. The important thing is just for you to come and for you to be that advocate to that client. Everything else we want to make as easy as possible for our volunteers. So, and we have all the forms, all the, any pleadings, anything like that you would need. We have step-by-step guides on how to do certain things. So it's a great way to learn new things or get a little refresher on an area that you might have forgotten about. And then, for some areas, they're a little bit more specialized. Not only is our staff, but we have some great volunteers out in the community that help serve as mentors to attorneys as well.
How does the process work? You mentioned that there are some things that you don't handle and you send out to other law firms. How do you draw that line? Where does that line get drawn?
The line, one is the financial qualification. So if they're not qualified, we have to send all those out. The other is anything where an attorney can maybe make a fee off of it. We're only handling cases where there's no money to be made for attorneys. With things like car wrecks, there's the ability for the attorney to get paid, or some other things like workers' comp. There's some statutory fees in there. So anything where an attorney can draw a fee from it, we're not gonna take. And like I said, people are facing out of their home because they can't afford rent. They're not going to be able to afford that other $500 for an attorney.
And here's the thing, everyone watching tonight, the good news is we're in their living room every Sunday night, right? So if they do not remember the entity, the Volunteer Lawyers Birmingham, all they have to do is let us know, and we're going to get you in touch with the Volunteer Lawyer Program each week. And hopefully this will be a great union between our law firm and the Volunteer Lawyers Birmingham, where we can continue to funnel work to them and make sure that people are properly represented.
And I know you guys have covered a lot of different areas of the type of work that you guys do with the organization. Expungement, that seems to be an area that a lot of people are really trying to get their lives back in order, but that's something that I would think that you guys are doing a lot of.
We are doing that. We're starting some expungement clinics. The Alabama expungement law is fairly new. It's fairly narrow. Not everything is going to qualify. So we really want to be able to take a look at what you were charged with, what you were convicted for. There might be a difference between what you're charged with and convicted. There's a limit on the number of charges. It's mainly going to be things for like a simple possession or a driving charge that get expunged, no violent crimes or anything like that. So we are starting to do that because it's key to building a sustainable workforce. If you have any sort of tick from when you were younger on your record, it's going to come up if you're trying to get your CDL or something, make you unemployable. So trying to get those cleared up to build that sustainable workforce.
Talk for just a second about the clinics you mentioned that you do, community clinics, which I think is awesome. I'd love to help and participate in one of those if I could down the road, if I can provide a service personally. Tell us a little bit about that, and are you going into the community and actually doing that? Where does that?
So we do go out in the community, whether it's a church, a community center. We're doing one coming up at the Salvation Army to help out with wills. What we just try to do is find a community partner out there and find an area of need. We really want to get out into the different pockets of Jefferson County because it is a little bit of a transportation desert. And so getting to where the people need to be, especially if we're looking at something like wills, we got a lot of limited mobility seniors. And so making things easier on the clients, making things easier on the attorneys, we'll do all the heavy lifting to get you taken care of.
I like that. I know we're getting ready to go to break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more related to kind of some of the individual cases they have, but this is a great topic.
Great topic, Graham. Thanks a lot. Stick with us. We're going to be back in a moment. We're also going to hear from one of our viewers, because viewers would like to get involved with the show as well, and you can also get in contact with the attorneys at 844-LAW-TALK. But stay with us as we hear from our viewers as we continue talking about volunteer lawyers here on The Attorneys. We'll be right back.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright. In court, attorneys are not allowed to tell juries certain things. For example, we cannot talk about a defendant's net worth, meaning the defendant's ability, resources, or insurance to pay a verdict. In this week's Legal 4-in-1, we're answering the question, why can't lawyers talk about a defendant's net worth to a jury? Now, Rule 403 of the Alabama Rules of Evidence states, in part, Relevant evidence may be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. Long-standing Alabama cases have held that the net worth of the defendant falls under this catch-all rule and is to be excluded. The reasoning behind the rule is that if a jury knows a defendant is wealthy, then the jury might award more money to the plaintiff. And this goes one step further. If an attorney makes any remarks that suggest the defendant is responsible because he is wealthy or rich and the plaintiff is poor, that can be grounds for a new trial. If you're ever on a jury, the reality in our state is this. In almost every lawsuit that goes to trial, the attorneys representing both the plaintiff and the defendant have already looked at whether there's sufficient insurance coverage or assets to satisfy a verdict. Most likely, the parties would not pursue a civil lawsuit if damages could not be paid after a jury returns a verdict. So even though lawyers cannot mention the net worth of the defendant during trial, there likely are resources available to pay a verdict in full. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. And remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. And as always, thanks for watching The Attorneys.
Good to have you along with us with the attorneys tonight. So glad you were able to join us. We're having a great discussion as we're talking about volunteer lawyers. Want to make sure that you take the time to get in contact with one of the attorneys from Hollis Wright right now. And they're making it available for you. It is free and it is confidential. And all you have to do is call 1-844-LAW-TALK. That is information that you just cannot pass up. And we've been talking about some great information, guys. We're coming back and we're getting calls and people are also reaching out. But we also have some people watching the show that we want to give them an opportunity to ask a question. And this is a question from Alex.
I have a question. I was recently run off the road by another car in an accident and injured. What can I do to be compensated for my injury?
That's a great question. That's one of the areas that we can't take, and so we have to refer those out. So, Josh, I'd defer to you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let's answer the question, then I want to talk a little bit more about kind of your role in these. First, to the extent that someone was run off the road, it does not mean that you do not have a claim if they left the scene of the accident. That's called a phantom vehicle claim, and those claims generally are in fact covered. So number one, know that your claim is probably covered. Number two is to get to an attorney as quick as you can to make sure that everything that can possibly be documented that identifies that it was a phantom vehicle is documented, because the insurance company sometimes will challenge some of those claims. So you want to make sure that that is properly handled by a lawyer. The reality is that those are covered claims, and if you were injured, you've got a viable case. Get in touch with a lawyer that can represent you at no cost with a contingency fee arrangement and give you consultation, and you really don't pay unless there's a recovery. So using a lawyer that does a contingency fee, I think, is super important. So this is a good shining example of there are circumstances where, good question, but circumstances that may not fit within what you guys do that you refer out to other law firms.
That's correct. So, and we work with the Birmingham Bar Association on all of that too, to get those referrals out and just make sure that we can tell people something and get them somewhere.
Yeah. You know, I have this theory that there are certain people I run across in my life that have a servant's heart, and I like to tell them that when I see it, because I want them to know that their servant's heart is super valued, you know, and sometimes you don't hear stuff like that, but, you know, what you do for a living, this is a servant's heart. Like, it doesn't get any better than this.
Thank you. And you know, just again, we have a real supportive community. Both our staff at Volunteer Lawyers Birmingham, as well as our volunteers, do all the heavy lifting. So really thankful for them. We have a lot of great servants out there.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about garnishments, because I know that's one of the issues you guys do handle a lot of. That's a significant issue, and I see it that comes up in our cases all the time, where garnishment is either either relevant on the defense side for the defendant, or even sometimes the people that we represent have those issues that want help with them. How do you guys manage and handle that?
It depends on the different debt situation. A lot of them can be different. A lot of times the company that's trying to get the money from you doesn't actually own the debt, and so they might have all the information they need. They might be taking too much money from you. That's always one of those things that you can get looked at, see maybe you need to pay a lesser amount, or maybe just go ahead and settle that for whatever it's owed, or it might be a wrong name, and they're calling you because you answered the phone. But yeah, it's one of those things that we can help get them to leave you alone, depending on what that garnishment issue is, because it's really important to get those extra few dollars in your paycheck.
And a lot of times, the reality is circumstances change in people's lives, right? And so they want someone to be able to consult to say, look, I have this changed circumstance. I lost a job, or I want my child back. I'm doing better right now, and they need someone to be able to go to ask those questions.
And the good starting point is an organization like yours, because a lot of times when people are in those situations, when life is changing, things have gotten behind, they may not have the resources that you normally would have, and that's why it's important to have volunteer lawyers that can come to the rescue, basically.
Yeah, no, and we're happy to do it, and we take calls all week, and we'll get you set up with an appointment.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit y'all's office hours. Are you? Is it a 5 days a week? Are y'all 3 days a week? How does that work?
We're in the office 5 days a week doing intakes and screenings, but we're mainly doing help 3 days a week, and then we'll usually have a fourth day once a month or every other week for a big community clinic.
And how do you cross over? Because I know the Birmingham Bar Association provides a really awesome service in our city. How do you guys cross over with them? I know you've traditionally been in their building with them. How does that cross over?
We work a lot with them through their different sections, just different representatives from the bar. Try to do some group projects together, and just really just work together on events, and just try to work together on things.
And if you have criminal cases that come in, do those generally get sourced out to a criminal lawyer, or does it really depend on kind of the status of the individual that comes in and whether they're capable of hiring somebody or not?
Same thing. It depends, and it depends on where it is and what kind of crime. If it's a municipality, they're going to have a different setup than if it's a county thing. So having to talk to the judge to see what resources are available for the defendant is what you want to do.
And this is a good example. And we hear these stories all the time. Someone is arrested for something, and they put their head in the sand and they think it will just take care of itself, and it won't. You've got help if you need it. Even if you can't afford a lawyer, you've got resources and opportunities and help you can go to.
That's absolutely right, Graham. There's just no value that we really can put on what you guys are doing, and so glad to know that there's an organization out there like what you guys are doing with the volunteer lawyers, and certainly also with law firms like Hollis, Wright, being able to assist in that process along the way as well. Thank you so much for being with us. Certainly enjoyed it. Josh?
Absolutely. Hey, and let me just say this. What's your number real quick?
205-250-5198.
And if you forget that, all you have to do is call the number in your screen, 844 Law Talk. We will get you to them.
That's right. Those numbers are scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. We always enjoy it when you join us, and thanks you also for your questions tonight. Make sure you join us next week, next Sunday night, after the late news for the attorneys. Have a great week.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.